That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Comic Reviews. I should have set up my shot a little bit better. Sorry about that. And my mic. I'm just awful right now. How's everyone doing? I hope well. We've got a ton of books tonight, and I see I already got Jake Carlson in the comments. Hi, Jake. Jake says, hi, I shouldn't, but I think I'm going to drop Wonder Woman. I understand that decision, but I've got a Wonder Woman issue, and I'll be talking about that tonight, so we'll get into it in just a moment. Always want to give people just a little bit of time to show up live. Of course, if you're watching this after the fact, do not forget there are timestamps in the description to skip ahead to any issue you want. But before you do that, here's an announcement in case you didn't know. The next episode of the Comic Book Club will be on May 19th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's a Saturday. For those that don't know what the Comic Book Club is, it is a live show in which anyone who has a legal copy of the book we're discussing may join and discuss the book with me and whoever else is on the live show. There are a couple other addendums to that, of course. You need a microphone and headphones, bare minimum. Webcam is preferred. But yeah, if you can show up, if you have a legal copy of the book, whether you got it from Amazon, Comixology, your local comic shop, Barnes & Noble, or rented it from your local library, all of those are viable options to get a hold of the book. The book we're discussing is, of course, Green Lantern Earth 1, Volume 1 this month. So yeah, the date for the next episode of the Comic Book Club has been set for May 19th, 2018 at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I hope to see all of you there. Literally, all 1,500 of my subscribers. I foresee no problems with this. Anyway, I think that's plenty of lead up and time for people to show up. So let's go ahead and talk about what we'll be talking about today. I've got Exiles, number 3. Batman, White Knight, number 8. Darth Vader, number 16. The Flash, number 46. Wonder Woman, number 46. But wait, that's not all. I did a live show on Free Comic Book Day, and someone linked me to to a smaller publisher called Short Fuse, and they were allowing free downloads of some of their titles. They are a much smaller, not a DC or even like an IDW. So we'll also be talking about Hotshot number 1. This is going to kill the flow, I know, as I open up PDFs. Tezla number 1. And the Cypher number 1. Now, I just thought of this because I'm a professional reviewer. I should definitely download those on my computer and share screen the PDFs as opposed to holding up the iPad with the reflective, super reflective surface to the camera. So I'll be doing that later once I get to those books. And then, of course, for Trade Talk tonight, we still have JLA, Justice for All, as we continue and get close to the end of Grant Morrison's Justice League run. So yeah, tons of stuff to get through tonight, so I'm not wasting any more time. I hope you all are ready. I'm taking a swig of soda and we're getting down. Alright. Exiles, number 3. So, again, my thing with this book is I got really excited for this. I saw the announcement that we were going to get a Peggy Carter Captain America, and I was like so down. And the first 2 issues didn't even have Peggy Carter Captain America in them, and they're also really poorly written. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I feel they were very poorly written. And I really had my hopes up for this book. I was hoping for, kind of like a second Bombshells thing to happen. And first and foremost, that is not the case. Bombshells is amazing. Probably the best Justice League run, you could argue, since Grant Morrison. It gets a little bit of an asterisk there for certain things, but this isn't a review of Bombshells. I do that all the time. Sorry. So I was really hoping for that, and that's just not what we're getting here. So the first 2 issues were a huge letdown. Really disappointed in them. And I was like, all right, I'm going to stick with it until Peggy Carter Captain America shows up, because that's just cool. I just want to do that. I also really like that she's drawn very similar to, what's her name? Haley Atwell in the MCU, so that's pretty cool too. But how did this issue hold up? Now that I've got Peggy Carter Captain America, am I going to stay on the book? And the answer is yes, for one more issue. Which is kind of what it always becomes, right? You do just one more issue, just one more. And then you're 70,000 issues into a series you can't stand. No, but like, this issue was most definitely an improvement. It still has a lot of the problems that I talked about from the first 2 runs, but this issue spends a lot more time on actual character growth and development, which is a good sign. Though I still think that it's really poorly focused. We spend probably the first half of the book just hopping between different worlds that end up really not meaning anything. They show up on an Earth with dinosaur people, they fight the dinosaur people, Time Lactus comes in and eats that Earth. They go to an Earth where Namor's a hippie, they meet one of Blink's former companions from an older version of the Exiles, and Time Lactus eats that Earth. But this time, instead of introducing a character to add to the team, they let the meeting of this other character, for this former team member of Blink's, actually help inform her character, because she's been kind of, I don't know if passive's the right word, maybe a little too nonchalant about people's entire worlds being blown up, which is what Khan, the former Miss Marvel, has been really angry at Blink for, is she's not really doing anything to help save these universes. They're just kind of popping into one, it blows up, and then they go into the other. So for her to lose her friend Morph in one of these alternate universes, it's actually having an impact on her, and that's kind of interesting. But then we finally get to what I buy the book for, and the smart thing is done here, at least the reasonably smart thing. They introduce Peggy Carter, Captain America, and then we spend the rest of the issue dealing with her thing. It's not like they just show up, hi, and then gobble up the universe. We actually spend a little time in the universe, and we get to go on a mission with this version of Peggy Carter, or this version of Captain America. We also get gender-bent lesbian Becky, and I'm cool with that. She has a crush on Valkyrie. That's adorable. Peggy Carter takes out Red Skull, and they save the day. They save Jersey from being nuked. There's this really weird thing where I'm like, I'm not quite sure what the message is here. Was that true what you said earlier, Cap? A whole city destroyed by one bomb? That's what the lab boys say, Izzy. A whole city full of people. They ain't soldiers, Cap. Kids, babies. What kind of a monster does that? The kind we need to stop. This is someone wearing a Captain America uniform in World War II. What is the message exactly? Yeah, fuck the A-bomb, sure. It's terrifying. Did a whole episode of Geeky Gentleman talking about the fears surrounding the atom bomb. But what? That's just a really disjointed kind of reaction. But anyway, they stop the bomb, at least for the moment. and start celebrating the victory. Valkyrie and Becky are dancing and getting drunk. That's adorable. When they realize the bomb's leaking something, and we get a nice solemn grid with the mushroom cloud in it, and we get a skull and Captain America shield, and then black. That's pretty good. That's a good ending. I'm actually starting to develop a connection to these characters because they're actually starting to have personalities and interactions and quirks, and it's not just, hi, my name's, oh no, I'm Galactus. It's actually starting to feel like a book with characters in it as opposed to an event, which is nice. So yeah, much improved. I also do really like the art. The design for Peggy Carter Captain America is pretty solid. I love the cover here. The thing that attracts me the most is right here. This tie underneath the uniform, armor, overshirt, I don't know what you want to call it, but like, she has like a dress shirt with a tie on underneath it, a white tie. There's something about that that's really clicking for me. I really like that design choice. At least I think that's what it's supposed to be. That's certainly what it looks like to me. I'm also really, really intensely interested in this Captain America's backstory, because she mentions Steve, which is weird. She says something to the effect to Red Skull of, you'll pay for what you did to Steve, or something like that. And that's interesting. Did Steve somehow pass on the super soldier serum to Peggy, and she took up the mantle? Because I am down for that. It's a really interesting idea. Anyway, so yeah, not the greatest thing ever, but much improved over the last 2 issues, and I'll give it one more. All right. Jake Carlson says, it's very Age of Ultron, Cap. I could see that. Yeah, I could see that. It's not bad. I just love the tie. Something about the tie totally works. Alright, let's go ahead and move on to Batman White Knight, number 8. Oh, man, it's finally over. I've been waiting for the conclusion of this for a minute and a half. And I gotta say, it's pretty good. I definitely still have my problems with it. I have my moments where I scratch my head and I question it. And I'm definitely planning to reread the whole series and talk about it in total at some point with someone. But it is really, really interesting, to say the least. I don't really want to do a plot summation because it's just kind of a ton of stuff happening. But there's some interesting moments in here that I really like, where Joker the book starts with Joker in the Batmobile with Batman saying that he needs him right now. Batman needs Joker because they both want the same thing, so he can trust him. Relax, Batsy. We're on the same side. Shared interests and all. You want to save Gotham, and I want to show that cosplay Jokerette how to swallow all of her teeth. Whew. That's a pretty damn good Joker. I'm still not sure how I feel about the way Napier's being written, as he is fully redeemed, and he is the good man underneath it all, which I don't mind the idea of. There is something interesting that something happened to the Joker and took over a good man. And so the idea that good person is under the surface and everything is really interesting. And there's this whole conversation Napier and Harley Quinn have as Joker keeps switching personalities between Joker and Jack Napier in this. There's this whole conversation that they have as they're escaping. Not sure for how long, might be my last chance to say this. Listen, you were right about me. Only you know the Joker's biggest secret, that buried inside of him was a good man. Someone Gotham City needed. Someone as important as Batman. Which is all I've ever wanted. Thank you for giving me a chance to learn who I really am, but most importantly, for giving me a chance to fall in love with you all over again. Oh, Jack, and then they're attacked. That one I find interesting, but I'm certainly conflicted on. And I want to talk about that more, but I want to talk about it in juxtaposition to another scene between the two Harleys of this book. As Jack is not there. They believe he's dead at the moment. Spoilers, he's not. And so Harley Quinn classic Harley takes on Suicide Squad Harley. I tried to save him from you and those pills, from turning him into something he wasn't. He was always Jack Napier. No, he wasn't. You gotta face it, sister. When you first fell in love with him, he wasn't Jack. He was the Joker. You don't want to admit it because you feel ashamed that once upon a time you fell in love with an abusive, loveless serial killer. No, I loved him in spite of all that. That's the real reason you hate me. I'm the dirty little reminder of what you used to be. See, like, I was having a bit of a I really don't like it moment with that scene between Jack and Harley, where he says, you saw the good man underneath, because I'm like, no! People in abusive relationships, there might have been, or there might be some good to the person underneath it all, but it doesn't matter. That doesn't give an excuse for abuse, which Harley Quinn, if anything, definitely fits the mold of an abusive relationship character. But then that scene happened, and I'm like, damn! It's a really interesting ball toss there. Because it would seem Sean Gordon Murphy just didn't think that through all the way or anything based on the first scene. And then no, this scene definitely seems to comment on that Harley Quinn did fall in love with the serial killer, good Harley or Suicide Squad Harley. And so that's intriguing. That Harley hates that Harleen hates Harley. Let me put it that way. Harleen, classic Harley Quinn. Harley, Suicide Squad Harley Quinn. That Harleen hates Harley because she reminds her of the biggest mistake she's ever made. And that I find intriguing. That Harley loves Joker for being a murderous, evil, abusive serial killer. Harleen loves this idea of a person she has that is underneath the Joker, that he can't be forever, even if he got to a short window. And that I really like. I'll still always recommend Joker's Asylum Harley Quinn, and what's the other good Harley story in the comics? There's another one I quite like that's just not coming to mind at the moment, but while there are good Harley stories in comics, I don't think Harley Quinn's ever been written well in comics on a consistent basis. The good stories, as far as I'm concerned, are flukes. White Knight is probably the best written Harley Quinn ever. It's a little weird that there are two of them, but still. That is a really, really well-told story. I like a lot of what that did with what this story's done with Harley Quinn. And then it's really interesting once they find out Jack's alive. He says, take me back to Arkham before I permanently revert to being the Joker. Let me walk through that gate while I still have my dignity. And as he's still Jack Napier, he asks that someone marry he and Harleen. And so, as they're going through the vows, he feels himself slipping and tries to hold on and just kind of ends up coughing up blood and falling to the ground. Right when the priest asks, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part. And then Joker just pops up and screams, "I do." So Harleen has now married the Joker. And I like this quite a bit, where he starts laughing because he knows he just ruined something for her, which is the most Joker thing anyone could ever do. And then you see the laughters carrying through the halls to where Harley is. And that's a really, really great Joker ending. As far as what Batman's got caught up in all this, we finally get to read the letter that Alfred wrote him on his deathbed, which is really, really sweet, really interesting, and I quite like it. And then there's a conversation. There's a lot of wrap-up in here that deals with more of the social stuff, and I'll talk about that in a second. There's a conversation between Batman and Harleen about how she kind of set a lot of this in motion, which I theorized about, I think, in one of my episodes. And then there's a conversation between Batman and Jim Gordon, where, thank the fuck God, Sean Gordon Murphy has Bruce address the fact that Joker was right about what he was doing. Like Jack Napier, let me put it that way. Batman was being too brutal. Batman was doing this, that, and the other thing. The city was letting him go too far, and the political issues of police brutality, of violence, just all the social justice warrior crap this book's been dealing with. Batman owns up to it and says, Jack was right. And I did go too far, and you let me go too far, Gordon. And so it all kind of culminates in this scene right at the very end. And Sean Gordon Murphy's been teasing that there will be a White Knight Volume 2. He says it's mostly been dependent on sales, but this volume has sold fantastically. So Batman comes right out and says, I enjoy hurting criminals, Jim. I don't use a gun and I don't take lives, but that doesn't always make me the good guy. Sometimes it's vindication to be as brutal as I want, and that made criminals like the Joker even worse. Sometimes I'm not even sure why I wear the mask. Is it to scare them, or is it because I scare myself? No, Gotham still needs Batman. You might have gone off the rails a little, you and me both, but I'll never regret all the good we did. But at some point, we fell asleep at the wheel. And that's how Napier beat us. Maybe he did us a favor. Now that we see the flaws, we can fix them. Give it time. Eventually the city will learn to trust you again. No, I need to tell them who Batman is. It's the only way anyone will ever trust me. But most importantly, it's the only way you'll ever trust me. And so Batman reveals that he's Bruce Wayne, and that's the last panel. Now, I really like the way that works, because my worry throughout the entire book has been that Joker's going to stoke the flames of all this really justified rage from a left-wing political view and get the people on his side and against Batman. But at the end of the day, the Joker's the Joker, Batman's Batman. So Batman should be the one to win. It's most likely to happen that way. But the problem, if you have Batman win against the Joker, who's stoking political rage and stuff, is what do you do with that rage after the fact? And so there's the saying that I go back to in my head that I often hear, and that is, a hero is only as great as his villain, because the greater the villain, the greater the hero has to be to overcome them. So the idea that the Joker, in the form of Jack Napier, has shown a problem existing within Gotham, and has stoked rage to that problem, and that Batman now has to deal with that problem, even though he's already beat the Joker, is really, really solid stuff. So he's won the day, but now he's actually got to go on and still try to be a hero. And that means actively acknowledging the things that the Joker was playing on. And that is great. That is a great way to end it, and that is a way I am perfectly satisfied with. It's a little, well, just work within the system, but you know what? I'll take it. It's not fantastic or anything, but it's believable, especially for a character like Batman. And so I really liked that. That was a pretty solid ending. Personally, I don't like the line, I enjoy beating up criminals. This is certainly a debatable thing with Batman, in my opinion, as to how much he likes hurting people. I remember reading someone say that Batman's, sickness or whatever is that he likes to go out and get in fights with criminals and then throw them in prison just to hold them for him so that they can bust out and he can do it all over again. And he perpetuates that cycle. And I do not like that interpretation of Batman whatsoever. And I'll fight you tooth and nail if that's your interpretation of Batman. That being said, I can see how someone would get there. And I think that Gordon Murphy, having Batman say that he's afraid of himself is interesting. And that could definitely be explored more. I don't think it necessarily needs to be explored within this. I think it's fine that that's something brought up at the very end of the volume because there's so much personal growth for Bruce Wayne in this story. A lot of times with Batman stories, Batman doesn't change. Batman is a rock. He's the immovable object. But there are, of course, occasions, and I feel that this is a story that justifies that occasion where he needs to take a more introspective look at himself. Because he's, of course, aware that he helped create this problem. So yeah, this is a really solid conclusion to this. It doesn't ruin it. I'm not 100% on any of it yet. I'm going to need to reread the entirety of it. And do expect something for me to go through and talk about once that's all said and done. But yeah, really solid. Really, really solid stuff. Let's go ahead and move on after I get us a drink. Alright, let's see here. What's going on in the live comments? More like Batman wins a hollow victory. Yeah, the Kamen Ranger says, even though Batman wins, everyone still loses. Nice. That line of enjoyment is problematic if it wasn't this version of the character. Yeah, I'd agree with that, Jake. That's a pretty good one. Hi, Nathan Snyder. Thanks for joining us. That's always been the reason why my friend Daniel finds Batman his least favorite aspect of the Bat family. That's fair. The unchanging guy is kind of a hard trope to get into if that's not your kind of thing. Akuma Ranger says, honestly, I never saw Batman enjoying the brutalization of criminals. Maybe in showing the worst, it's their own fears. Maybe. I don't know. I'd have to think about that more. Give me a sec to adjust my lighting a little bit. Coming through a little dark. Now that it's spring, the light, it just lasts a lot longer into the evening. And so I start the show and my lighting's fine. And then I start doing the show and it goes down throughout very quickly. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to Darth Vader, number 16. I've been pretty hard on this book. I think that paid off because it's taken quite a turn and I'm really starting to enjoy it. This issue has quite a bit going on in it. I'll mention just one little side thing that I really liked real quick, where Tarkin admires General Radis. Radis, of course, being the Mon Calamari, or Admiral Radis, I'm sorry, being the Mon Calamari admiral that we see in Rogue One. So here's we get to see his first big play against the Empire, And it's just kind of cool. Like, he's got this whole strategy involving, like, civilian tanker ships and shielding and all this stuff. And he's created an impenetrable fortress from which to fight the Empire with. So that's pretty sweet. That's pretty sweet. And I like that Tarkin's sitting there admiring that strategy. Like, he has this line. And then there is Admiral Radis. The king tasked him with defense of the southern polar regions, and he has devised a strategy that is... Well, I will give him his due. It is brilliant. I like the idea that, like, that is so classic film. I can't remember the name of the movie, but there's this one World War II film where it's like a naval captain in the military, the U.S. Navy, and he's on a destroyer, and then there's a German U-boat commander, and they're playing cat and mouse, fighting each other, trying to sink each other throughout the whole movie. And then finally at the end, they do damage to the U-boat, and so the German crew scrambles up and tries to get out of the sub before it sinks, and the U.S. Navy men, like, bring them on, and the two commanders, like, look each other in the eye, and, like, shake hands as the German commander surrenders. And, like, there's so... Yeah, Nazis, fuck Nazis, all that shit. But, like, just that like, very classic film thing that totally inspired Star Wars of the admiration of the enemy's tactics and stuff like that is really, really cool. And so I really like that. Tarkin's obviously an evil bastard, and any day of the week, Radish should be able to completely destroy him in a just world. But just that he's got this respect for the enemy thing is really cool. So anyway, the main story behind this one, though, where the fuck is my General Radis or Tarkin comic? Bitch. Anyway, the main story of this issue is the Jedi Knight that was advising the King of the Mon Calamari, trying to escape Vader and the Inquisitors. And so you keep seeing, like, these people that have joined him, and, like, they keep sacrificing themselves in order to, you know, give him and the rest of the team a chance to escape. And every time one of them dies, we get a flashback scene of why they joined. And I really start to like this motif right here. Look at it. Look at the Jedi's hand. Look at it. Anyway, so, like, yeah, you get another one, and you start to see... Look at the Jedi's hand again as it goes back. And you begin to realize just the dialogue is very, very particular. We will bring down the Empire together, Overick. The Force has shown me the path. All you need to do... And then the guy's like, says, is follow you. And, like, look at his face. It's so... like, mesmerized. I love it. That's really smart that we've got a Jedi using the mind trick to gather followers who are willing to die for him to escape. That's pretty twisted, edge of desperation shit that this guy probably is maybe, I don't know, some kind of gray Jedi. Bitches. So no, that's a pretty cool little device. I'd say Soule uses it a little too much, but I'll give him it. It's fine. So anyway, Vader gets called away to assist Tarkin, and he trusts the Inquisitors to kill the Jedi for him. And then the Jedi reveals that the clone soldiers that are with the clone troopers are with them are from a younger batch, and they're inexperienced, or they're expendable for the Inquisitors to use. And he goes through all this, and one of the Inquisitors says, "Yeah, you've got it all figured out. You're still going to die none of that matters." "Oh, but I say it does. The past matters. History matters. Truth matters. Once a Jedi, always a Jedi. Execute Order 66. And so, like, that's sort of the comic ends, and, like, just the whole time, you see panels of his hand, and this is so unnecessary. Like, the box around it is super unnecessary, but to put, like, this vibrational effect on the hand is unnecessary. The hand being visible in this panel is totally enough. So it's a little spoon-feedy. I got it, like, 2 times in. You don't need to keep doing it. But anyway, so this guy mind tricks the clone troopers that are with the Inquisitors. Just like he mind tricked all of his followers. That's pretty solid shit. I'm pretty happy with that. That is a great turn. It shows the kind of like desperation, the Saw Gerrera, anything needs to be on the table kind of by any means necessary fighting tactics, and I quite like that. That's pretty good. That's pretty primo shit right there. Really happy with the turn in this one. The quality has jumped up a lot in this arc, and that is very, very much a welcome change. Trying to think if there's any cool panels that I can show. Like, I really like... I'm going to butcher the shit out of this dude's name, so I apologize in advance, but Giuseppe Camuncoli? Ooh, that is a name, guys. I am sorry. I really like his art, and he's been on the book the whole time, so he's been the consistently best thing about this in a lot of ways. He does a lot of things really well. He does drawing the aliens really well in like a very realistic manner without just, at least I think, without just tracing over stuff like the guy in the main Star Wars book does. He just does a lot of really great stuff. The space battle here, or well, underwater battle here looks really good. This is solid work. You know, he does like the big stuff well, and the subtle facial stuff pretty well too. Pretty happy with this. Like, this is a good face. It's a good face down there. I like that. It's good stuff. It's good. Alright. One more drink. Okay. The Flash, number 46 by Joshua Williamson. This is the Road to Flash War. Hunter Zolomon teams up with Eobard Thawne. That's the beginning. Okay, cool. That's fine. I'm alright with that. Meanwhile, Barry is taking Wally West to everyone he can think of to try to help him deal with all this mind flooding memories from all these alternate timelines now. And it's overwhelming Wally, and he doesn't want to be tested anymore. And so I'm beginning to get the feeling that Flash War is going to, at least in part, be connected to Wally going kind of crazy from all this memory flooding. I don't know what you'd call it. I'd have to imagine that's going to be part of the excuse as to why Wally West will be fighting against Barry Allen. So that's reasonably smart. That's a good way to justify it. Yeah, they're definitely going to be fighting. That's a good enough way to justify it that Wally's probably going to be going kind of crazy. Barry goes to Alfred, and I'm like, really? Really? I mean, Alfred's a great character. I love Alfred. But, like, Barry goes to Alfred? I just don't see that. I'm sorry. Like, Alfred's great, and I'm sure he has a cool relationship with anybody on the Justice League. I just don't see Barry, in a time of crisis, being comforted by Alfred. I don't see that as necessary. No one in the Flash universe can fill that void? Really? That's just so cheap to me. Barry couldn't go to anyone else to talk about with... I ain't feeling that part. What else? So, Thawne and Zoom are arguing about their differing philosophies in regards to what to do with the flashes, and so Thawne just kind of takes off and goes to do his own thing. I'm assuming this is pre the button, because the next time we see Zoom, he's watching Thawne die. And that's okay. After he watches Thawne die, he gets his speed back and is going to go after the Flash now and invoke a war between them. Anyway. And then we get one scene with Wally going to places that make him feel better, including the Flash Museum, which doesn't exist in this timeline yet, and that's really starting to fuck with his mind. And so Barry tries to find a way to help comfort him and everything, and so they decide to go on a run together. So yeah, I think that if I'm gonna be a prediction kind of guy, Wally's just getting overwhelmed and he's gonna go a little bit crazy, maybe spurred on a little bit by Hunter Zolomon, and that's what's gonna kind of start the Flash War. That's my guess, and I'm sticking to it. What's going on in the live comments? Wally getting memory problems over, try to keep up with DC continuity. Yep. Feel that Wally West just became the most relatable character in DC Comics. Jake Carlson says, I just hope Williamson doesn't get rid of Hunter's make the Flash better philosophy. That's the entire backbone of the character. Yeah, that's a good point. That was kind of his introduction. And right at the end here, he says, they deserve nothing. If the Flashes refuse to see the road to being a better hero, then I will take them down a road to war. Huh. Yeah, that does seem a little like he's getting rid of that. I hope not. Because, yeah, I do quite like that. He's got such a twisted view on the world. Comrader says, Wally West, pre-New 52. Don't tell me that it didn't happen. I saw it happen! Oh, Star Trek 09. Nice. Nice stuff. Good job. Good job, Akuma Ranger. No, that's no Wally West is going crazy from trying to keep up with DC continuity. But it's up there. I'm liking the jokes. The comment section is killing it with the jokes. See, you don't even need to be a good reviewer if you just do your shows live and steal all the clever things people say in the comments. There's a little YouTube tip for you, boys and girls. Alright, last big company book of the week is Wonder Woman, number 46. And you know, it's not been a bad week. Usually I don't have very kind things to say about the Wonder Woman book. I started the show and Jake Carlson's in the comments and he said that he's thinking about dropping Wonder Woman. And while I certainly wasn't thinking about dropping Wonder Woman, I'm planning to stick with her through thick and thin, just like I would any of my mainstays. It's been a particularly painful run lately. I've not liked anything I've read Robinson doing with the character, just flat out. Like, there's been moments here and there I'm like, okay, this is kind of okay, but not at all worth the run as it's been. This issue, however, I don't know, I felt it was a bit of an uptick. And maybe it's because of how much I feel Robinson is taking and running with from Rucka's run at the beginning of Rebirth. But this works a lot better. This is just a much better issue to begin a story arc with. It's got a really solid build-up. It's got some intense action throughout the entirety of the book, and it's got a solid-ass cliffhanger that makes me excited for the next issue, so it's hitting on all cylinders right now. The only reason I would say I wouldn't like this is because I've been reading Robinson's Wonder Woman run, and I just feel like he's not turned in his A game. However, just like I said with Soule, I'm not, like, committed to hating a writer or something. Robinson keeps writing like this, I could be down. I could be so down for Robinson to keep writing Wonder Woman if he keeps it at this level of quality. This, I feel, was a pretty solid issue. So, we start off with this flashback about Wonder Woman fighting the cheetah, and then we get Veronica Cale and Dr. Cyber talking about the whereabouts of the cheetah, and Veronica wanting to experiment on her. Dr. Poison's introduced here, which is pretty nice. And yeah, the cheetah escapes, as supervillains tend to do, and she escapes saying, Urzukatuga! That's Urzukatuga! I think that's how you say that. It's the name of the god that turned Barbara Minerva into the cheetah. You are not the only god. The dark gods draw near. Greater than you, Urzukatuga. Better than you. So she escapes, and she's cursing the god that gave her powers. Saying that they're new gods. And she makes it all the way up to Veronica Cale's office, killing people along the way. And she plans to kill Veronica Cale as revenge, as a way to remove herself from her former god, because the dark gods are coming. And that's when Wonder Woman comes in and attacks, and she and Cheetah have a fight, and they're kind of like discussing stuff during the fight, as comics do, and this is giving Wonder Woman clues about what's going on with Cheetah. We get a scene of Jason and his father figure that I don't care about at all. So that's where I'm still a little iffy, but whatever. And then we get a conversation with Steve Trevor and Wonder Woman as she's flying around trying to find Cheetah since she escaped. But Steve Trevor kind of explains the situation that's going on around the world. No, what? No, I was checking to see if you're alright with everything that's happening right now. No, what do you mean? Reports of people numbering in the tens of thousands swearing off their gods while in the throes of violent bouts of insanity, saying how the next gods will come, dark gods. They're not shy about it either, riots and destruction breaking all out over the planet. That sounds like what Barbara was saying, the next gods, and how she wanted to sever her ties with Urzukatuga. Oh, that is a name and a half. Well, stay alert out there, Angel, okay? From the data coming into Argus, this insanity about next gods is affecting people on shaky terms with whatever gods they have already. The cheetah can't be the only one out there like that with superpower. And then, Wonder Woman says, Steve! Whack! Rao is dead, Wonder Woman! And you're next. Supergirl versus Wonder Woman for the start of the next issue. I'm digging it. I am totally digging it. The idea of people, like some kind of new mythic force rising up, and people on shaky terms with their own religion losing it and becoming devout to this new rising deity is really interesting. And Supergirl, I don't know a ton about her, to be fair, but Supergirl would make sense for her if she did believe in Rao, to be kind of on shaky ground with Rao, since she's not around anyone else that believes in Rao. And, you know, he kind of let her planet die, so how good a god was he? To put it really frankly. And so she would be, if you think about it just generally and by the terms of the story here, she could conceivably be on shaky grounds with her own religion. And we've got a new deity rising. So, yeah, she'd be susceptible. That's pretty solid. I'm pretty I'm pretty into this. This is a good turn for this. Cut out the Jason stuff, and this would have been a great issue. All right. How's everybody doing in the live comments? I hope well. I hope well is the answer. Now, for those that weren't here at the beginning, I do actually have more books to talk about. So just give me a sec while I do some Googling. Alright. Oh, that's not the right thing. Sorry. There we go. I need to download some PDFs because I bought some comics, or not bought, I got some free comic book day specials of some comics from the Short Fuse Media website, and I got this well after my free comic book day show. So I figured I'd talk about them here on the main week show, and I just need to download them on my computer so you guys can see them while I talk about them. Alright. That should do. Minimize this screen and this screen. There they go. Okay. I need to figure out what order I plan to talk about them in. Hotshot #1 first. Okay. So, I need to do some movement on the microphone and stuff as well, folks. Please stand by. Let's see here. I'm adding a screen capture of this window. Let's see if you guys can see it. Yeah, I'll put it as the full screen there. And I'll do some zoom out over here too. Yeah, 180% is a little much. Let's try just 100. Maybe a little less than that. 75? Okay, good. So now let's just make sure that you guys can actually see what I'm looking at. Okay, good. You guys can see everything. That's excellent. Alright, and just someone make sure, can you guys hear me still? I just want to make sure everyone can still hear me before I begin. Well, maybe this would help. Hello? Yep, I think you guys can still hear me. Just real quick. Again. Well, maybe this would help. Hello? Yep. You guys can still hear me. That's great. Sorry if there's a little bit of an echo there for a second. I just had to do some searching real quick. Okay, so we're good to go. Let's begin by talking about Hotshot #1. So, Short Fuse Media graciously decided for Free Comic Book Day to make some of their first issues to different series and stuff available online. And I found out about Short Fuse Media because this is the company that Justin Cristelli, the real Manos, is about to start publishing Red Knight through again. And so he's republishing. New issues of Red Knight are going to come out under the Short Fuse Media banner, and he told me about the website and about this free comic book day special they're running. And I said to grab a couple issues for free. Why not? Give it a shot, check it out. And since I read them, why not talk about them on comic reviews? Alright, so the first issue is Hotshot #1. And this is written by Victor Dandridge. Let's go with Dandridge. With art by Michael Watson. And yes, Hotshot is a character created by the artist Michael Watson. So this was kind of interesting, and it's got like a lot of backstory that I particularly, I'll just be honest, I wasn't really all that interested in. This is the hard part about reviewing an indie comic. I feel like I've got to be nicer, but at the same time, I'm not putting on kids' gloves. So I didn't love this. I'll just say that up front. This didn't grab me, and I definitely cannot see buying the book based on this issue. For a first issue, I feel that this is like way too inter-universe dependent, and I'm not getting a great sense of who Hotshot is. Like on his own. Like they just spend so much time setting up what's going on with this world, how there's like this big huge crisis, and now we've got this guy Hotshot dealing with it. And, like, this isn't connected to the big crisis, but that's kind of on in the background. And Hotshot's dealing with this guy here, who's, like, some kind of super villain that's out to kill him. And he does some flashbacks, thinks about his own life and how he got left by his girlfriend recently, because his superhero activity is remarkably similar in behavior to what a cheater would be doing. So she's under the impression that he's cheating on her. And that's kind of weighing on him as he's in the middle of this fight with Void, I believe he's called. And yeah. So, I don't know, the action's pretty cool, the fight's not bad, but I'm just not super invested in it. I just don't feel like I'm getting a great sense of who the character is, and this is just, it's pretty generic superhero stuff, so it's really not grabbing me and making me want to read this on its own. There's kind of this interesting moment where he has to save a bunch of civilians, and that includes saving his ex-girlfriend from a car and blah, 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 blah. So I'm really not all that invested in the story, but I really don't like a lot of the art here, I'm afraid. Like, this face is just really hard to look at, and I'm like, yeah, I can't take that seriously. It's just the proportions are all wrong, the eyes are off, and I don't know a ton about art, so I don't want to try to sound like an expert or anything, and this is better than anything I could draw, but it's still not pretty to look at. It looks really, really awkward on the page, and I just didn't care for that. Then the art style seems to change in different pages. Like, maybe it's the inkers, because if you go back up and look at the credits, we got several inkers and several colorists working on here, and so some of the art looks really solid. Like, I really like this page. I think that looks pretty cool, dynamic action, and I quite like this page, especially the shading on this page looks great with the lighting. But then as you keep going, like, you can almost see the exact point at which the colorists change. Yeah, you can. This is clearly a different colorist than this. And nothing's wrong with either of those styles. Like, this coloring, this more muted, simplistic palette with, just a handful of shades, it could totally work. It's just, it's disorienting when you go from, like, this to that. And so I was pretty disappointed by that. So this one, yeah, this book didn't grab me all that much. This had a lot of stuff in it where I was just like, yeah, I just can't see it. I just can't see why I'd want to be reading this, which is unfortunate, because it looked really interesting. I really like the cover. I did the thing you're probably not supposed to do. I bought the books I decided to get on their free comic book day special. I decided to get based on the cover, and I really like this cover. It's got a cool look. I especially like the effect here on the hand. That's pretty solid. I like Hotshot's costume. It's pretty unique and stands out. I was a little reminded of Blue Beetle, but it's very, very different in its own way, and I quite like that. All right, let me get my next book going. Oh shit, no, damn it. Okay, hold on, sorry. Computering's hard. All right, let's talk about Tezla #1. All right, what do you guys see? You see Tezla #1 on screen, right? I want to make sure everything makes sense before I do things. Okay, cool. Tezla #1. All right, I need to redo my settings here. What did I have it at? 75? Yeah. Now, Tezla #1, again, another short fuse book. This one I liked quite a bit more. This just worked a lot better for me. I feel the art, just to start with that conversation, is a lot more consistent. And this one is much more character-focused and driven. And that just makes it more interesting. This is something I could actually see buying some issues of. Whereas the other one, Hotshot, didn't do it for me. So Tezla is a college student who has recently had some superpowers unlocked. Oh, there we go. recently had some superpowers unlocked, those being electricity-based superpowers, and she's been spending her nights fighting crime as opposed to doing her homework. So we get a flashback as to how she got her powers. Her dad works in a lab where they're trying to unlock the human genome and human potential, and it turns out that some people have the ability to have mutant powers unlocked. There's this guy who's in the military being experimented on voluntarily, but something goes horribly wrong, and he blows up the lab, and her father's at risk, so he hopes for the best and gives her an injection to allow her hidden powers to be unlocked, and it works, luckily, and she's able to save their lives for a brief moment. And so since then, she's been using her powers to try to save the day, but now she's come into contact with the guy who had been experimented on in the first place, and he's leading a criminal ring that she's been disrupting, which will be this story will of course be continued in the next issue. So yeah, this one just works for me a lot better. It's much more character focused, it's much more narrower in scope. This is just a lot more enjoyable for me to read as a one-off for a universe that I don't really know whether or not I'm invested in the entire universe or just in the characters, you know? So this, I feel, was a much better introduction. Also, the art, again, just much more consistent. There's still some panels where it's a little questionable. Like this, the proportions on this face seem a little off to me, but it's really not bad. You also get some really cool stuff. Like, I like this quite a bit. That facial expression is solid. I love the blue eyes, the glow effect on it, the way the lightning's shooting out. The intensity in the face, the way it's all moving in with the hair, that's really solid stuff, and it looks really, really good. This is just a much more consistent, much better to look at art style, and I quite enjoy it in comparison with Hotshot. So this is something that's grabbing me a lot more. Particularly, again, whenever she lights stuff up, it's really cool. I like her goggles. The costume design on Tezla is pretty solid. There's a good look at it. Simple. I like the little electricity on the T. The blue and black is always a cool color combination. Goggles are pretty sweet. I love the fingerless gloves. I like it. It's just solid stuff. It looks like a superhero book. I might actually pick up an issue of this. That sounds exciting. All right. And then I got one more from Short Fuse Media. This is The Cypher, #1. Let me make sure you guys are seeing what I'm supposed to be showing you. Yep, there's The Cypher. All right. So this is 3 different stories, all written by Michael Watson, who I guess I'll take a stab and say he's the front runner of the universe, which is fine. So this is just a bunch of introductions to the characters, and I wish I'd read this first, and I should have reviewed this first, but this kind of just gives you an idea of who a lot of the characters in the Short Fuse universe are, and what the background on the politics of superheroes in relation to the Short Fuse universe are. So we've got this dude called Everywhere Man, which is, I gotta be honest, this is a pretty weak name for a superhero, but whatever. This dude named Everywhere Man kind of went evil or crazy or something, and blew up a lot of existing superheroes as well as a bunch of civilians. And so the world's pretty wary of superheroes now, and of what they could mean. And they're also lacking a lot of their experienced veterans. So everyone's kind of coming up in the world. So we get a short little introduction to this character called Wolf, who's like a detective, and she's got quite a smarmy attitude. We get an introduction to Heroes International, who's like a team, kind of like a Justice League thing going on with them. we get an introduction to, or we get like a tease to, I guess, a villain in the Hotshot book, which, okay, that's fine. I would have preferred to stay focused on the heroes, but I guess it works. Then we've got this girl whose name's Cypher, and she's a DJ / model. I don't like the art on her. It's really too much. Like there's a lot to break down here. So first of all, it's obviously very cold. She's starving. That's not workplace appropriate. It's just distracting. There's nothing wrong with this character comfortable with their sexuality, but at a certain point in comics it gets a little ridiculous, and this is the line at which it gets kind of ridiculous for me. She's got caught in the middle of some dude named Champion, I think, fighting some ninjas, so she has to run off and go get into her costume, which, again, this just gets to the point where it's a little bit exploitative, a little bit too much for me. Again, we have the exposed midriff and chest area, and that's like, oof, that's a little much. Thanks for the camel toe. That's just too much. It's just, I start to lose interest when stuff does that. Anyway, she teams up with and fights the ninjas and bad guys with these other heroes who are introduced. And they kind of save the day and work together at the end. And that's pretty much it. We get another story with Hotshot meeting Titan. And this story did get me really liking Hotshot a lot more than the main story did, which is pretty interesting. So this is an origin for the character Titan, who we're getting here. And she's introduced by, like, one of the adventures of Hotshot. I will say, Hotshot seems to always be eating something in his books, and that's a character trait I quite like. So anyways, Hotshot hears some trouble going on. It's caused by this lady right here, who clearly seems unaware of what's going on, how she hurt these people around her. And he's trying to figure out what to do because as he got closer to her, he got blasted away. And there's a guy there telling him to just hit her, just get it over with. And he's like, hey, do me a favor. What? Shut up! that I liked. And then Hotshot like runs, and he's like, I only got one shot at this. So you think, okay, she's clearly dangerous, and it's going to be pretty typical superhero stuff. He's going to fight her. No. This I liked. This I thought was pretty good. She's freaking out. She's losing her mind. She doesn't know what's going on with these powers she's experiencing. And so what does he do? He goes and hugs her. And I love this little, please work. That's pretty good. This is a solid scene. And this kind of stuff makes me like Hotshot a lot more than the single issue Hotshot did. So this was inspired stuff right there. And then she goes, a hug? What made you think that would work? I didn't. I just hoped it would. That's pretty sweet. That makes me like Hotshot. That is pretty unique. Also, the art style is a lot more consistent throughout that little mini issue, and that's pretty good. Cypher, however, I don't think I'm going to have much interest in. It's just a little too much. But yeah. So, Hotshot, I may give a second chance. Cypher, I think I'm pretty done with. And Tezla, I found pretty interesting, too. So, there seems to be some pretty cool stuff going on over on the Short Fuse universe. Titan also looks kind of interesting. Yeah, pretty interesting little book. Call it 2 for $4. It's not bad. And I got them for free, so I can't complain. Anyway, I was pretty happy with all those. I was pretty happy. Man, I got one viewer. That was unfortunate. Oh well. Alright, let's go ahead and move along to Trade Talk. So I'll be leaving you. Alright. JLA, Justice for All. This is one of the last collections of Grant Morrison's run on Justice League. It's when Mark Waid starts to come in and write a bit more. And we've got several stories collected in this one. So the first one is the Shaggy Man story, and that is hands down my favorite in the volume. So it starts off strong. But we have General Waid Eiling, who's, of course, kind of usually a generic DC military guy who's always antagonistic toward the Justice League, kind of forming his own little super team of Marines, and you know, planning to have them take on the Justice League. But he also steals the capsule containing the Shaggy Man, who's an unstoppable monster of a villain that the Justice League fought a number of years ago, almost to a standstill, and didn't truly beat. They just incapacitated him for a while by storing him in a pod at the bottom of the ocean. So the issue, or the story arc, starts with that pod being stolen and the Justice League being attacked as they try to prevent it. They trick Green Lantern into not being able to make any constructs, so Aquaman has to rush him to the surface within minutes, otherwise Kyle will die. And going through that many layers of, or that many fathoms of depth, that quickly causes the nitrogen bubbles in Aquaman's blood to expand, which succeeds in giving Aquaman the bends. It's pretty good, pretty good. So Aquaman's coughing up blood. That's pretty clever. You know, I like stuff like that when a super powerful hero is taken out by turning their superpower into a weakness. I think that's really clever. So anyway, the general informs the president that he's going to have his superpowered Marines fight the Justice League and take him down because they're too much of a threat. And the president says, "Wait a minute, what casualties are you talking about? What is this, Eiling? What are you talking about? An effective demonstration of our military superiority. No! Call it off right now, Eiling. I didn't authorize this." "No, Mr. President, I did. You may consider this a military coup if you like. I'll explain the details as we proceed." So you got this crazed general taking over the U.S. government and stuff. And so the Justice League is lured into a trap, and then they have to deal with fighting the Ultramarines, who have, you know, crazy superpowers and stuff. And so the Justice League is being really just rounded up and hounded down and getting their asses handed to them. As much as I liked Kyle and the way the cool-ass things Grant Morrison had him do in the last issue, I will say Kyle kind of gets the short end of the stick in this entire volume. He gets kind of taken out over and over again. Gets taken out by mind waves, and in the first issue of this arc gets taken out by something else that's just causing him to vomit uncontrollably in this arc, so he can't do anything. So I'm a little like, Green Lantern needs some respect right now. Anyway, so the Justice League are trying their best to fight the Ultramarines. All the meanwhile, General Eiling is doing something with the Shaggy Man. And so Batman, Plastic Man, and Huntress try to infiltrate Eiling's military base, and don't have a ton of luck doing that. Or get there, but he's already dead. They're not sure what to think. And it's revealed that that Eiling had transferred his brain into the Shaggy Man. Now, if you watch the Justice League Unlimited show, you'll remember an episode where the general character, who is Eiling, transferred his mind into into one of the villain monster things or something like that, and became a giant unstoppable monster. And that's kind of what's going on here. I really like this line from him because Grant Morrison has such a great sense of character. The Shaggy Man. I never had a day unshaven since my daddy handed me my first razor. That Shaggy Man style had to go. You can call me the General, and be nice about it, little lady. So yeah, Eiling's just in this unstoppable body that fought the Justice League to a standstill. Like, Batman even goes so far as to straight cut off one of his arms, and it just immediately starts regrowing. Nice try. Genetically enhanced salamander tissue. Regenerative. I can survive any attack. I can regrow any limb. I feel no pain. Better run. I don't know why I'm doing this voice, but I like this voice for the General. Meanwhile, the other the other half of the Justice League are fighting the Ultramarines, and Superman kind of just stares them down in the middle of town, and they kind of realize who's on the right side and who's not. And the Ultramarines also realize that they've been manipulated and that they're going to die because of the bodies that they're in. That they can't survive. And Batman keeps fighting Shaggy Man, all that stuff. It's really cool. I do love this moment for Batman, and I talked about this in the volume with Prometheus in it. So Batman starts talking to Eiling. Too bad that brain isn't designed to support much activity. The Shaggy Man was practically mindless, territorial, primitive, poor at processing new information. In fact, as you think about that, and you realize I'm right, you're beginning to notice how difficult it is to think of any useful information at all. You'll mostly find that you want to sleep, and that any thoughts you have will take you deeper into the state of deep, deep hypnosis. So Grant Morrison in the 90s, I guess, had a thing for just talking people into hypnosis for superheroes. And honestly, it's a trick that's fine once. I think he's a little walking on eggshells to do it twice, but to be fair, there's several arcs in between that, so you probably only notice it in trade, or if you have a particularly good memory, but, you know, I think it's a lot more clever here. And to be fair, it was Prometheus doing it in Justice League. It was Prometheus doing the hypnosis in the last time, not Batman. So maybe Batman picked up the trick. I don't know. But I thought it's a little iffy, but it's pretty cool that he's going to attack the Shaggy Man by hypnotizing him. You know, attack the mind, the one part that is vulnerable. But unfortunately for Batman's plans, Superman busts in at the last minute, trying to blow up the Shaggy Man. And Batman, of course, yells, "Superman, I almost had him." For the first time, he was vulnerable to psychological attack. Okay, plan B. I like that quite a bit. So they have to replan, re-strategize, and the Ultramarines join the Justice League in taking down the General. And transporting him across using a teleporter to transport him onto an asteroid in the middle of space where he has no hope of getting off, but because of his DNA, he won't die. And so he's just kind of left on this rock, and I love the little trick with the speech bubbles where they're just blank white. That's pretty good. It's pretty good. The Ultramarines go on to found a city that's going to, and they're going to be an international strike force loyal to no government. So it's a little iffy. I don't know if that's going to come back. I don't recall it. And then at the very end, Our Man shows up to take Jean's place on the League for a little while because Jean needs a break, and says that he has come to help save the League from the war with the fifth dimension, which isn't happening yet. Then we get the Amazo story, where the League's trying to recruit more, and including Professor Ray Palmer, the Atom. They've also discovered an Amazo robot that is set to turn on in half an hour and try to break his creator out of jail. And so the League starts taking on the Amazo robot because he wakes up too early, and they keep sending in more and more heroes to try to fight the Amazo robot so they can maybe overwhelm him before he can absorb their powers. And that just doesn't work and ends up making him more powerful. And then the Atom shows up with the plan to save the day. Because the Amazo robot is programmed to copy the powers of the Justice League. I'm going to say that again. He is programmed to copy the powers of the Justice League. So the Atom shows up, whispers something in Superman's ear, and Superman says, "The JLA is officially disbanded." Amazo loses all his powers. Fucking love it. That is comic book writing gold right there. Fuck your super punches and your Kamehameha waves. That shit is what makes comics, and I adore it. That is absolutely incredible writing. I love shit like that so fucking much. You have no idea. That kind of stuff is my crack. I can read that 1,000,000 times over and never ever get bored. God, I love that. So that story was written by Mark Millar, who's of course Grant Morrison's protege. So that was pretty good stuff. And so the Atom, even though he was reluctant to join the Justice League, he has agreed to join on a part-time basis, with the proviso that he doesn't have to do monitor duty. I like that. That was a good-ass story. Then the next story arc is called Crisis Times 5. And this is absolutely bonkers in the most Grant Morrison way possible, as the fifth dimension has forces go to war with the third dimension. So for those that don't know what the DC Universe's fifth dimension is, that would be characters like Mr. Mxyzptlk and Batmite. Little magical imps that can do anything they want to reality. We even get like a team that I didn't know existed, and I want more of it because it's awesome. I gotta see if I can find them. They're introduced with like a proper panel of all four of them and everything. Oh, there we go. So we've got Highfather. Who's that one? I can't remember this guy here. We got Highfather, the Wizard Shazam, a Guardian of Oa, the Phantom Stranger, this man should not exist, and yet man, I don't know who that guy is with in the middle there between Highfather and the Guardian. My DC. Too many old white guys with beards. No, but that's really cool that they call themselves the Quintessence, and they are the highest. They're some of the highest intellects in the DC universe, all working together. Where's this? This guy had a great line. The Guardian had one of the best lines ever, and I absolutely adored it. Because it's the most Grant Morrison thing I think you could ever write, because it deals so much with your perceptions of how things work, and I really, really like that. I gotta find the Quintessence again. Did they not show up in this first issue? I thought I just saw Guardian now. Because it's just such a good fucking line. And I know it was the Guardian that said it, but where he said it is the problem of finding. God, I should really get better at bookmarking these. Okay, it was on the panel. I looked for no reason. The power of the entity it contains is also beyond calculation. Our numerical system has no means of describing such orders of magnitude. My analysis of the situation suggests it may be too late to prevent the two Jinn entities from clashing and threatening the universal grid. The idea that you can have a level of devastation beyond the ability to calculate because of the fifth dimension is the most Grant Morrison thing I think you could write, and does a great job of selling the threat. And of course, Grant Morrison's whole thing is like, okay, we've got the big guns of the DC universe together on the Justice League. What kind of threats will they be dealing with that it needs them? And of course, it's stuff on the level of the level of universal damage is so incomprehensible that you can't use numerical systems to calculate it. And there's stuff like that all over the book. The idea of the limits of your knowledge, the limits of your ability to perceive the reality of the world, are so far beyond what you can ever hope to achieve when it comes to fifth dimensional beings. And that's really, really cool. So there's like two genies fighting, and they're trying to save the universe. The JSA teams up with the JLA, which is pretty cool. Steel gets his ass handed to him by this guy called Triumph, who was one of the founding members of the Justice League, but due to Justice League time travel events, was forgotten and erased from history with his powers, and now was never part of the League. No one remembers him and all this stuff, so that's kind of interesting. And so he wanted revenge and unleashed one of the Jinn into the world to cause havoc and destroy the Justice League. And you've just got, you've got such crazy shit. Alan Scott and Zuriel go to free the Spectre, who the Jinn have trapped in a world. So Alan Scott and Zuriel go to free the Spectre, and they notice that the world time moves differently, so they can conceivably just wait, and the world will collapse upon itself, and then they can free the Spectre without threatening the life on the world. And so they sit back and watch as civilizations rise, and Zuriel appears to try to communicate with them at one point because he's an angel. He has to talk to them. After a half hour, the angel went down to see how things had changed, and they built a temple around him. It had already crumbled by the time he opened his mouth to speak. His first word took 750 years to say. At the speed they were advancing, he must have seemed to them like some impossible silent statue, enduring for generations. That's so cool! That's so, like, I would never be able to think of something that nuts about, like, time moving that quick around a thing. So anyway, lots and lots of craziness. Captain Marvel and Green Lantern get transported to the fifth dimension and have to escape into the streets and try to find someone to help them. Our Man's floating around the Justice League. The force in the fifth dimension, who's behind everything of these two entities fighting, is named Quisp, who's apparently an Aquaman villain that I've never heard of before. I guess Aquaman got his own fifth dimension imp. And he's got an ultimatum of what it will take for him to stop these two fifth dimension entities from fighting. If you really want to avert a war no one can win, you have only one choice. So come now, show this child the true meaning of heroism. Which of you will give your life here and now to save the world? And you'd better hurry. So, like, this is the scale of devastation we're dealing with, where we've got two Jinn fighting literally with the world. It's so knuckin' futz and just incomprehensibly big. Spectre's released, Batman starts fighting Triumph, and all kinds of craziness ensues. Green Lantern and Captain Marvel get help from the governing body of the fifth dimension and bring them to Earth to help stop all the fighting and the destruction. Triumph is defeated by Superman and realizes that if he just asked to be back on the League, he maybe would have been allowed to. But he realizes that too late, as the Spectre, who's now been freed, shows up to deliver judgment upon him. Now keep in mind the Spectre is the wrath of God, and Zuriel is the kindness of God. So they don't like each other. That's kind of interesting that they get into a fight. So Zuriel spares Triumph's life, or gets the Spectre to spare Triumph's life. Also, Wildcat's in this, and they explain that he's got 9 lives. That's how he's able to be a superhero in his 70s. Okay. I don't know if that stuck, but okay. Anyway, Triumph, though his life was spared, he is still kept frozen because they don't know how dangerous he might be. Then the next story revolves around No Man's Land, and if you're curious at all about No Man's Land, I did a series on that. Reviewed No Man's Land, Road to No Man's Land, Cataclysm, all of the No Man's Land stuff. But this little story revolves around No Man's Land, and it's like, okay, so what was the Justice League doing during No Man's Land? Well, Huntress was on the Justice League, so the Justice League had a presence in Gotham. And they were also preventing would-be evil organizations from getting a foothold in Gotham and using it as some kind of quasi-state or experimental petri dish or something like that. So they were stopping Gotham from being conquered. So that's, for what they wanted No Man's Land to be, that's a reasonably satisfying explanation of what happened, or what the Justice League was doing. And then we've got another story centered sort of around the events of No Man's Land, where Batman gives the League a target to hunt down who may be responsible for it all. That target being Bruce Wayne. Everyone's like, what? And I should mention, this story is written by Mark Waid. So Bruce Wayne is being targeted by the League, except for Wonder Woman and Superman and the Flash, who are told to run around the Earth. So we got Big Barda, Orion, Kyle Rayner, Steel, and Plastic Man hunting down Bruce Wayne. Who once they find him, he immediately seems to know who they are and runs away. And meanwhile, Superman, the Flash, and Wonder Woman are circling the Earth looking for somebody, but no one's really sure who. The only thing they share in common is they're looking at themselves in the reflections. And then it's all revealed why that is. It's because Bruce Wayne is a white Martian. From the very first volume of Justice League by Morrison, the white Martians that were sleeper agents are still alive in the DC universe. Their minds have been wiped, so they don't really know who they are. But this white Martian was working at Wayne Enterprises during the No Man's Land crisis, and that caused a trauma which sort of helped wake it up and make it conscious of itself, at least on the far reaches of the brain. And so it was starting to come into its powers again. And Justice League shows up, has to fight it, keep it from making telepathic contact with the other white Martian sleepers, so they can take him out. I love this scene with Orion. So Barda and Orion and Plastic Man are fighting the white Martian, and Orion's like, so he's afraid of fire? Barda. And Barda starts pouring gasoline on Orion so that he can step in it, catch on fire, and beat the shit out of the white Martian. And that's cool as shit. Damn, son. Orion don't give a fuck. So that was pretty kick-ass. Anyway, they're able to defeat the White Martian before he makes contact with the others. They're able to re-wipe its mind and, save the day, but Batman is still suspicious of the others. Superman points out that the others still don't know Batman's Bruce Wayne, and maybe they should be worried about that. Maybe it's time to come forward, and Batman says, if I'd come forward about that years ago, we wouldn't have been able to use this plan, because the White Martian would have been able to know they were looking for someone who wasn't actually Bruce Wayne. And he's like, yeah, but I feel like you should still have some trust for your teammates. And Bruce goes, I'm open to it when you are, Clark. So he's like, shit. And then there's also some curious stirrings about what exactly Barda and Orion are there for. So overall, really solid collection. I like everything in here. I just really like that Shaggy Man story. There's something about it that's so perfect, which is crazy for me because I love Fifth Dimension stuff. But since it's not Batmite or Mxyzptlk, I'm kind of just okay on it. But it's still really cool, really fun. And I loved the idea, of course, there'd be a team with High Father, the Guardians, the Phantom Stranger, Shazam, and someone. I don't know who. Anyway, yeah, really, really happy with this volume. Pretty solid stuff. Pretty happy with it. It's good, and I'm excited to read more. I love Grant Morrison's Justice League. It's too much fun. It is too much fun. You may get hurt having this much fun. All right, everyone. I think that'll do it for Trade Talk. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate every view I get. Anyway, next time we'll continue with more Grant Morrison Justice League. Till then, bye. Whew. And thank you everyone for watching comic reviews. Whew, that was a big night. That was a lot of books. So thanks for everyone that came out. Until next time, though. See ya.